Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Destiny from Desphixs and welcome back to another video in the Django e-commerce. In this one, we'll get started working with the authentication features, starting with the register function. That is what we'll be doing. Hopefully you will enjoy the video and learn something new. So let's get started. Begin by opening up your code editor, and I want you to open up the views PY for the user auth application. And in here is where we will start writing the views for the register. So let's start off by creating a new one called register_view. And this one will basically take the request parameter. And down here, the very first thing we want to check is if a user is already authenticated, which means a user is logged in, then we don't want them to be able to access the register page. We'll show them a message that says you are already logged in, and then we'll push them to the home page. So if request.user.is authenticated, then we want to show a message, say messages.warning, and we're passing requests, and the message that we want to tell them, we will say you are already logged in. So that is the message they will see in the alert. Then the next thing we need to do is return redirects to the home page. So we return them to the home page. Now that we have done this, let's go ahead and import some of the things that we are missing, like the redirects and also the messages from Django.contrib. Import messages. Very good. So we need some kind of form that will allow users to type in their full name, email, mobile, password, and also select their user type, whether they are a customer or they are a vendor. So for you to be able to do this, you want to create a new file here in the user auth called forms.py. Very good. And in the forms.py, all we will do is just go ahead and create a simple form for the user registration. And I will also go ahead and create the form for the login, so that we don't have to get back here. Import a couple of things from Django, import forms, that is number one, and also from Django.contrib.auth.forms, import user creation form, good. And also we want to import captcha from captcha.fields, import recaptcha field, not base. And then we also need the, do we need the checkbox? Okay, yeah, we also need the checkbox. So from captcha.widgets, import recaptcha v2 checkbox. So v2 checkbox is the captcha that actually gives us the opportunity to click on it and select some matching images, and Google verifies it and returns a token back to us. Then finally, let's import from user.auth.models, imports user. Very good. That's everything that we want. So the next thing is to create a tuple for user type. So user_type should be equal to, and we need two types of user. One is going to be vendor, and the other is going to be customer. Very good. So now we'll give the user this list over here, not really a list, but a tuple. So we'll give them this tuple to select from. And there are a couple of errors I can already notice because there is a red underline over here. Firstly, this is a tuple, which means it's not a dictionary, which means we don't need this column over here. Replace it with a comma. And you also need to wrap this to vendor in parentheses, and also this one in parentheses. And we should be good to go. Now let's create a new class called user register form. And in this one, we will pass in the user creation form. So Django has already given us the ability to actually register users without even having to create a custom form like this, just by calling the user creation form. But if you want to go ahead and extend things, add more customization to the way you register your user. For example, in this one, we'll be adding a full name field, and we'll also be adding a user type field. That is when you need to go ahead and extend from the user creation form. So the user creation form already gives us fields like the password 1 and the password 2, which means we don't have to explicitly create those fields. And even if you take a close look, you will see that in the user model over here, we don't have any field named password1 or password2. But automatically, immediately we import this, Django will know that, okay, even if we call password1 or password2 field over here, it's totally okay because we are already inheriting from the user creation form, which has those fields. Okay, it's just like extending from something that has already been built to customize it and actually add our own logic to it. We need a couple of fields. The very first one is going to be full name, and this is going to be coming from forms dot, and what we want to set to this is forms dot char field, and widgets for this is going to be forms dot text input. And if you're working with Django forms, one of the downsides to this is that you might find it difficult adding things like placeholders or classes or IDs. You know, adding all those attributes might actually seem like it's not feasible, but this is one of the cool ways that you could actually use to add classes, placeholders, IDs, events, or whatever you want to your form field or to your input field. So over here, we say widget should be equal to forms.text input. And in here, you could go ahead and specify that, hey, I want to add attributes, and attributes in a dictionary. You could then go ahead and specify what attributes you want to add. Let's say I want to add a class. The attribute's name is going to be class. The value is going to be form control, which is a bootstrap class. And I also want to add rounded, which means I want to round the input fields. I don't want it to have sharp edges. Rather, I want it to have rounded edges. Okay. And also I want to add a placeholder, and outside here, placeholder is going to be full name, or you could call it whatever you want, like enter full name, or, you know, whatever you want to pass in there. And you could also go ahead and say something like, let's say you want this field to be required. You could say required should be true, or you could say required should be false. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. Let me close this up a bit, and hopefully you can see this. All right. So that is basically it for the full name. We will follow the same routes and actually create other ones like the mobile, the email, the password one, the password two, then the captcha, and later we'll create the user type. So the next one is going to be mobile, and we still want to stick with char field, stick with the same class, but over here, the placeholder is going to be mobile number. Very good. And over here, this one is going to be email. And we stick with the char field. The placeholder is going to be email. Very good. And you could just say email address instead. And this one over here is going to be the password one. And I want you to explicitly call it password one because that's what user creation already got for us. And instead of having the char field here, or you know what, we could still go with char field, but here, instead of a text input, we could then say password input, so that it actually puts whatever we type in there in dots, so that users that are looking over our shoulder will not be able to see what we are typing in as our password. Okay. And for the placeholder, you could say password. And the same thing goes for the next one. It's going to be password 2. And over here, it will be the same thing, text input. And instead of full name as a placeholder, it will be confirm password. All right, that is everything that we want. Now let's go ahead and create the captcha field. So I will say captcha should be equal to recaptcha field. And what widgets do we want this to take? So recaptcha field widgets should be equal to recaptcha v2 checkbox. And please make sure to initialize this, or you probably will have an error. And after that, finally, we need user underscore type. This one should be equal to forms.choice field, because we want them to be able to select either they want to be a vendor or either they're creating an account as a customer. So we want to make it a choice field. Now, since it's a choice field, what choices do we want to pass in? The choices should come from the user type that we specified over here at the top. All right. And we need some kind of class to be passed into this so that the styling looks good. So I'm going to say widgets should be equal to forms dot, then we want to call the select function over here. and we'll pass in attributes just like we've done before, then create a class. So class should be form select. All right, that is pretty much it and everything that we want. So now let's go ahead and create a class meta. And in case you don't know, class meta is basically a way that you could use to add more information to whatever parent class that we have over here. So whatever we are adding into the class meta is basically saying, hey, I want this class to still have some more settings, minute settings, and this are where I want to pass them in. So some of the things that we want to associate with this main class over here is the actual model that we'll be working with, which is the user model. So whenever this form gets submitted, we want to interact with the user model, which basically means we want to create an account for the user. Okay, but don't worry, I will still show you how all this works. And also we need some kind of fields to be passed in, and the fields that will be passed in will be full name. And if you don't want to have to type all this out, you could just copy this with the comma and the space, then paste in 7 more places, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Then you could go ahead and copy all this one, because that's everything that we will be needing. Then highlight all this, holding down alternate on your keyboard and double clicking on each and every one of them. Then you paste. Simple as that. So now that's all the fields that we will be needing. That is it for the user registration form. Let's get started with the login form. All right. So I'll say forms.form, and all we just need to do is go ahead and create the email, password, and the captcha fields. So if you want to take it a step further and don't want to type out all this, you could just copy this for the email and put it down here. Copy this for the password, put it down here, and finally copy this for the captcha and put it down here. Now you could change up a couple of things like the email. If you don't want it to be char field, oh, I forgot to show you guys, it can also be email field. That's going to work perfectly well. Okay, if you want, you could change it to email field. If you want, you could leave it as char field. And also for the password, it's okay, let's leave it the way it is. Also for the captcha, I think it's okay too, let's leave it the way it is. Now let's go ahead and create a class meta, which basically means that we want to associate some more informations with this main login form class over here. Okay, so I will say model should be equal to user, and fields should be equal to, then over here I will say pass in email, password, and captcha. Whoops, I think I made an issue over there. Good. Then pass in captcha. Okay. All right. So when you have done that, that is everything that we want to do. Now I want you to hop back to your views py over here, and I want you to import that form. So say from user auth import forms as user auth underscore forms. Very good. And when you've done that, that's everything that we want to do. Let's go ahead and also import the vendor models. So say from vendor import models as vendor underscore models. All right, that is everything that I want. So down here, let's continue processing the form for the registration. I will say form should be equal to user auth forms dot, then I want to call the user registration form. Take note, not the user creation form, but the user registration form. And in here, I want to grab whatever a user has typed into this form. In the future, I will show you guys how to actually turn this into actual inputs and display it in a template. But after a user has typed in all their information in the inputs from our front end, we want to be able to grab everything that they have typed in and actually store it in this form variable here. So what you're going to do is, after calling the user register form, you basically want to pass in something called request.post. So request.post is basically what will go ahead, grab everything that the user has typed into that form and save it in the form variable. But what if a user hasn't typed in anything? I want to return all none. So over here now we can check if form.is underscore valid. If form.is underscore valid, then we want to do something. So basically what this will check is if this form over here and everything that the user has typed into the form is valid, then we run whatever code we have over here. If for any reason the form is not valid, maybe it's none, or maybe the user is not actually passing in fields that are supposed to be passed in correctly. For example, in the email field, let's say they are just passing in destiny instead of destiny@gmail.com, then this form is not going to be valid. Let's say they are not passing in some amount or length of password, then this form is not going to be valid. Hopefully you get the idea. So if this form is valid, let's go ahead and save the form by saying user should be equal to form.save. And just like this now, we have created a new user and saved them to the database. But there are still a couple of things that we need to do, like filling in the user profile for them automatically using the information that they have provided, so that they don't need to actually fill this in some other time. And they'll be like, hey, come on, when I was creating an account, I filled in my username, email, mobile, password, and user type. But why am I still being asked to fill this in my profile? So we don't want our users to actually think about that. And we want to help them automatically fill it in as soon as they create an account using the informations they have provided to us. So what I'm going to say is full_name should be equal to form.cleanedata.get, and I want to get full_name. So this is actually quite simple and explanatory. So remember that the form over here stores all these fields in the user register form. That means the user register form holds something called full name, right? We can now say form.cleanedata. The clean data over here basically means, hey, if the data is actually valid, that is only when we want to get it. So if for any reason a user is passing in destiny instead of destiny@gmail.com for the email field, we will not get it because it's not a cleaned data. Okay, so we want to grab the full name, and if you want, you could also go ahead and grab the email, mobile, password, and user type. So over here, email, over here, mobile, over here, password, over here, user_type. And then you could go ahead and replace it over here too. Okay, full name, email, mobile, password, user type. And in the previous video, I believe I have actually showed you guys shortcuts that you could use to perform all those operations faster and speed up your coding experience. And over here, let's go ahead and authenticate a user. Now, this is actually my own choice. I don't know how you want your system to work. When a user creates an account on your system, do you want to automatically log them in, or do you want to redirect them to the login page so that they can actually check if they remember their credentials that they created and use it to log in? So it totally depends on what you want, but I'm going to show you guys how to let users log in case that is also what you want. But if this is not what you want, all you need to do is replace this next line of code with a very simple redirect to the login page. All right, simple. So I'm going to say, hey, let's log in this user by saying user should be equal to, then we need to import the authenticate function because it seems like we don't have that already. Now scroll all the way to the top and you want to import from django.contrib.auth. From django.contrib.auth, I want to import something called authenticate and something also called login. Very good. Now I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom again over here where we are trying to authenticate a user, and we will say user should be equal to authenticate. And remember, in the previous video, we have actually changed our authentication method to use email to log in instead of username, which means authenticate now is going to accept email should be equal to email, and it's also going to accept password should be equal to password. Very good. So now this is going to authenticate a user but not log them in. So if you want to log the user in, basically call the login method and pass in the requests and also the user over here that we authenticated. Now that is going to log a user in. If for any reason you don't want to log a user in, you could go ahead and comment this out and pretty much redirect them back to the login page. As simple as that. Hopefully you get the idea. But I want to log a user in, so I will stick with this. All right, that is it. After a user has been logged in, I want to show a message. So I'm going to say messages.success, and over here I'm going to pass in requests as a parameter, and then the actual message that I want to show them, which basically will be account was created successfully. All right, that is all good. So after you have done this thing, let's go ahead and fill the user profile in for them, so they don't have to manually do this by themselves. So I'll say profile should be equal to, then user auth models, which I believe I have not imported. So let me scroll all the way to the top and import that. I will say from user auth import models as user auth underscore models. Very, very good. Now down here, we can call profile should be equal to user auth, whoops, that should be user auth models dot profile dot objects dot create. So what we're trying to do over here now is create a new profile for them using the informations that they have provided to us. Now, if you take a close look, when we built the profile, we did not create any form of signal to actually create the user profile for them. That is because I've done this in a whole other tutorial or other tutorials that I've posted, and I actually want to show you guys another way that this can be done. So don't get me wrong, it's totally the same thing. When they create an account, we create a profile for them. It's totally the same thing. If you want to work with signals, that's fine. If you want to do it the same way, that's fine. I might also show you guys how to work with signals in the future. Okay, so we're trying to create a new profile now. The full name of the profile should be the full name that the user provided us. The mobile number associated with the profile should be the mobile number that the user provided to us when they were trying to create an account. And also the user that owns this profile should be this user over here that just got authenticated. All right, that is pretty much it. Now, all you could do is go ahead and create, in the profile over here, we have this field called user type. So you could go ahead and either make this user type a vendor or customer based on what the user selected when they were trying to create an account. So how do we do this? You could check if user underscore type is equal to vendor, then what do we want to do? Let's go ahead and say profile. Rather, if it's vendor, let's firstly create a vendor account for them. Say vendor models dot vendor dot object dot create, and user should be equal to the user that just got authenticated. Their store underscore name for now should be the full name, because they didn't actually explicitly provide us with any store name when they were creating an account. So it only makes sense that we fill that in with the full name. Okay, you can see that in the vendor model over here that we have this field called store name. Good. That is why we called store name here and passed in full name as the store name. And also when that is done, I want you to go ahead and set the status or the user type of the profile to be vendor. So I'm going to say profile dot user type should be equal to vendor. All right, that's good. Then I'm going to say else profile dot user or underscore type should be equal to customer. I think I might have a problem with user type. You can see that over here it's a user with an uppercase T. Hopefully you don't have the same problem with me, but just to make sure that we are not going to delay or stop anything from going on, I will just leave it as it is and continue working. All right, that should not cause any problem for us. Then I'm going to say profile dot save. So what this is going to do is, remember, it's created the profile for us and saved it, but then we made some updates to the profile, so we need to resave the profile over here. All good. So now that we have done that, that's basically it. The only thing I want you to do is, I want you to create a next URL to be equal to requests.get, and I'm going to say either return to the next URL or go to the store index. Now, okay, let me write down the final one, then I will explain. So we return redirect to next URL. So this is one of the coolest features that I like. Coolest, is there any word like that actually? So what this will do is, if a user is trying to create an account, so let's say a user was trying to check out and we're like, hey buddy, you actually need to create an account before you check out. But it only makes sense that when the user hops onto the login page, that we should know how to redirect them back to the checkout page where they were, so that they don't have to go through the same process again, looking for the page and how to navigate to the page. So what we do is this. When a user gets to the register page, we store something called a return URL in a next query parameter in the URL. If you don't understand, let me show you. This is how it's going to look. So let's say that we have our website here, www.123 django.com. Now, a user is coming over to the sign up page, right? So sign up page. I want to store the previous URL where they left in the URL. So I'm going to say next, which is a parameter or query parameter rather, should be equal to, then over here, we will have the previous URL. Let's say the /checkout page was where they came from. Now, as soon as a user hits the sign up page, we run all those functions here and we get to this next part. As soon as we get to the next part, this line of code will go through the URL and check, hey, if there is next in the URL, grab its value. If there is no next, let's say next is blank like this, or there is nothing like next, grab the value of store index. So what we will do is return the user to whatever next URL is. If next URL is checkout and the user have created an account, we return them to the checkout. If there is nothing, maybe the user just wanted to create an account and start testing out our platform, we return them to the index page. So this is a smart way that we could use to know where the user is going to go next. All right. That is pretty much it, guys. Let's go ahead, create a context, and I want you to pass in the form to the template. And I will return, that should be return render. And what templates do I want to render? Requests. And over here, it's going to be the user auth / sign-up.html. That is going to be the name of the template. And you also want to pass in the context. All right, that is pretty much it. So now what we need to do is create a URL for this. I will come over to my user auth app, right click, new file, urls.py, and we need to import a couple of things like from Django.urls, we need to import, that should be path, good. And also from user auth, import views, very good. And also we need to define what the app name is. So the app name is user auth, and then we need to create URL patterns. Path should be, and this one I want to call it, you call it sign-up, like that. And what is the view that is related to this? It's view.register view. What is going to be the name of the URL? We could just call it sign up. There you go. That is everything that we want. Let's go ahead, stop our server, and rerun it again. I know we've been writing a lot of codes without actually testing anything, but don't worry. Now we will start working with the visual part or aspects of things. I want you to, while our server is reloading, I want you to come over to templates, and I want you to create a new folder over here called user auths. That should just be user auths, okay? And I want you to create a new file in here called signup.html. So after creating this blank signup HTML, I want you to locate the raw templates and open up the signup HTML. And you could basically copy everything that we have over here back to our own signup HTML and simply paste it. Okay. And now you could even go ahead and collapse this so that we could see some space and work with the configurations. And I want to reduce this a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is open up one of the pages that we must have created in the past, like the checkout or the cart. And you could take one of this and this, and I want you to bring it into the sign up and basically put it at the top and at the bottom. Good. That is what we want. So now that you have done this, I want you to also open up we can now go ahead and open up our browser, right? And okay, this is what we have. Close this up, and I want you to open up port 8000 just like this, and let's see if everything runs well. Good, everything is loading up well over here. Let's come over to user/signup, but this might not work. See, it's not working. That is because I just remembered that right now we just created those URLs only in the user auth app, but Django does not actually know that this URL exists. So what you want to do is come over to ecom prj urls py, and just down here you could duplicate this and say user/. I believe I've explained this in the first section of the videos. Then over here we just need to say, hey, this URLs is stored in the user auths.urls. Allow your server to reload. I think that is reloaded. then you could get back here and reload this page. And see, we are already logged in, so it's pushed us back to this page. Now, that is actually quite nice. So I will open up my admin and try to log out. Good. Now you can see I am logged out. So what I will do now is visit the user sign up page again. And there you go. It's working perfectly well as expected. So all I'm going to do now is go ahead, replace all this placeholder with the actual fields that we will be making use of. So you could get back to your code, come over to sign up HTML and start replacing, starting with the full name. Instead of the placeholder full name field, in 2 curly brackets, add form dot full name, which was what we defined in the forms PY. Now, when you get back here and reload this page, there you go. We now have our form inputs. So we will do the same thing for the email. Over here, I'm going to pass in email, do the same thing for the mobile. And I'm going to do the same thing for the password. And also for the password too. Please make sure that this is called password 1. Okay. And finally for the user type. So user underscore type. And finally for the captcha. So now that you have done all this, go ahead, reload your page and let's see what we have. Okay, captcha actually exists, but we have not installed it. Firstly, in the settings PY. So open up your settings PY and let's see if we have installed it. So go ahead and comment this out and there you go, server reloaded. So we get back here now and reload this also. Server seems to have an issue. Let's see. It detected one issue. So it says recaptcha private key is making use of blah, 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 which basically is trying to tell us that, hey, the recaptcha private key might not actually exist. So what I'm going to do is search for this over here in the settings. See, I don't have any of this over here. Now, if you already have this in your env, go ahead and install them in your settings, just like we have installed other keys like the stripe and all those other ones. So let me check what I called mine in the env. Remember, I have already provided you with the templates for the env, so all this should be quite easy and simple for you to follow along with. So in my settings, I called the both of them Django recaptcha public key and private key. So what I'm going to say is env, and I basically grab the Django recaptcha public key and Django recaptcha private key. All right, that is good. So let's see what's going to happen when we run our server. So the only thing that I can pinpoint that's going on here now is this is actually supposed to be called recaptcha public key. Leave this one the way it is. The Django one coming from the env can remain the way it is, but the one in the settings PY is actually supposed to be called recaptcha public keys and recaptcha private keys. So you can see as soon as we actually changed it from Django recaptcha to actual recaptcha, everything seems to be working fine and our server is reloading. So all you just need to do is get back here and boom, here you go. Can you see it's opening up the page perfectly well as expected. Now there is just one thing that might be missing. That is the fact that localhost is not in the list of supported domains for the site. So this only happens if over here, this URL here is not added in the list of supported domains for this particular site. Now what I'm going to do is basically open up my recaptcha. This is it over here. Whoops, not that one. Recaptcha, this one here. So come over to google.com/recaptcha/admin. Then you go create a new recaptcha for yourself or for your site or whatever you want, and then grab the keys. Okay. So what I will do is come over here, and over here you can see some of the sites that I've got showing over here. You can see that I've got a couple of them here, but for some reason the domain for our local host is not added yet. So what I will do is click here and add this. Make sure that there is no HTTP and make sure that there is no slash at the end, and you could go ahead and save. Good. After saving, now let's get back here, reload this and see what happens. Can you see that captcha is now coming in and showing up perfectly well? So what I'm going to do is fill up this form. Take notes, this extension is called Fake Filler in case you need it. It helps you fill form quickly and easily. And I'm going to put in some mobile number down here. Make sure to select the captcha and then we could go ahead and sign up. Good. Now we're seeing forbidden over here. That's a 403 error. That is because a couple of things might be missing in our sign up page. Let's hop over to the form. You can see that the form has a method post, but does not have a CSRF token, which Django uses to prevent cross-site forgery. And also the button has a type of submit. That is good. So over here, this one that has a placeholder URL, don't bother about it. We'll fix it later. Now what I want you to do is reload this page, not by clicking on the button, but by clicking on the URL and hitting enter on your keyboard. And let's try creating another account for this user. Okay, I'm going to put in some number over there, select recaptcha, and then I will go ahead and sign up. So based on this error that we are getting over here, there is just one thing I can say that is missing, and it will either be from the email or from the password. Email is email, password is password. Please add password 1 over here. I think we missed that. And let's see what's going to happen after our site reloads. Reloads, get back here, refresh this page. And now you can fill this in again using your Fake Filler extension. And I want to add like an actual mobile number over here. Select the captcha and then sign up. There you go. Account was created successfully. That is it. Accounts are now being created. Let's hop back to our admin page and log in again. Now, if we come over to users, we should now see that we have this user called thooks@mailnator.com. That is basically it, guys. Everything is working as expected. If there is something that you don't understand, let me know in the comment section below and I'll be more than happy to help you out. Also, consider checking out some of the links in the description below. One of them there should guide or lead you to whatever you might be looking for. And a couple of courses there should actually help you become a better Python and Django developer. Also, Desphixs is almost close to launching. In less than 2 months, everything should be live and for everyone to actually use and get better and streamlined learning experience. Hop over to desphixs.io, punch in your email address, and as soon as we launch, you'll be the first in line to know. That is going to be it. I hope to see you in the next video. And until then, mad love. Peace out.